And welcome to our webinar series with Ilgisa. Our speaker today is Dr. Joseph Kursky from Esri. He will be presenting on progress, challenges, and connecting with the GIS education community. Dr. Kursky is a geographer with a focus on the use of GIS in education, among other things. He has served as the president of the National Council for Geographic Education, and he has also given 2 TED Talks on the whys of where. He holds 3 degrees in geography and has served as a geographer at NOAA, the U.S. Census Bureau, the USGS, within academia at a number of colleges and universities, and currently as the education manager for Esri. Joseph has authored over 100 chapters and articles, 200 podcasts on GIS education, space, place, other topics, many different geospatial related areas. And he's visited over 350 schools and 400 universities around the world. He gets around, a true geographer, folks. He created over 6,200 videos. You can check out his YouTube channel. 1,000 different lessons for educational purposes, 1,000 blog essays, and he's authored 12 books. Please join me in welcoming, we're honored to have Dr. Joseph Kursky, someone who I call my colleague and close personal friend, and he will talk to us today on some exciting stuff that should be happening and is happening in the GIS education community in connection with the geospatial workforce. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and Joseph, you can have the floor.
Well, many thanks, Dr. Schultz, for the kind words. Greetings all. Joseph Kursky here. Great to be with you today. I can't think of a better topic for our times than to talk about the intersection between the good work that you folks are doing in the GIS professional community and education. It's extremely relevant. I'll make it as fun and dynamic as possible. And you can also get a hold of me on LinkedIn or send me an email. I'd love to keep in touch with you folks going forward. Hopefully you're seeing this story map that I've got right here. And I also put it in the chat box so that you can actually engage in the content after today's 3-hour session. Just kidding. We don't have 3 hours. Just wanted to make sure you folks were on your toes. But seriously, there are more things that I will be able to cover in this story map that I put together for today's session. So hopefully you're seeing that, and hopefully you're seeing the chat box with my link in it. Okay, so connecting with the GIS education community. Let me just ask you folks a couple of questions. What moment or moments in your life nudged you into becoming part of the GIS community? A field experience as a kid? Was it a presentation that you saw? Was it a teacher, an experience in a conference, ILGISA or other conference? Was it a book that you read? Was it some travel that you went on as a younger person that nudged you forward? Maybe you were the family navigator and you had a bunch of paper maps in the passenger seat of the car, and you were helping your guardians or parents navigate the landscape. But somehow you had a positive experience out in the field, and you got connected with doing your part, what you felt was your part to make a positive difference in our world through the application of spatial thinking and geotechnologies. Here's a geeky photo of me as a young person. But whatever was your pathway, I'm really glad that you're a part of this community, and I'm glad I'm a part of your community, at least virtually today, but hopefully ongoing into the future. I'm not going to bore you with my own background because Dr. Schultz very kindly mentioned it, but I'm going to share this because I know we've got a wide variety of people on the webinar today, face-to-face, but all, in our virtual session, but also watching the recording into the future. And I'm hoping that this pathway of mine encourages you in 2 ways. One, that you can change organizations, as I have. As Dr. Rich mentioned, nonprofits, government, academia, and private industry for me. You don't have to stay at the same organization your career. But the second thing I'm hoping that this is encouraging you to think about is that, especially for those of you that are sort of getting into your GIS career right now, that Geospatial technology and spatial thinking are going to be valuable no matter what organization you belong to. Okay. So I'm hoping that's encouraging you in two ways. Now, a little bit about my journey, since I encouraged you to think about your own journey. My journey was actually, this was my front yard. My parents owned this motel in western Colorado, the land of the Ute Mountain Utes and the Southern Ute indigenous people. And it was a great place to grow up because I got to hear about faraway lands and the places that the guests in the motel visited. I also, thinking about, your own journey once again, I made maps as a young person. Maybe not a surprise to you all. Maybe you did the same thing or did something similar with exploration. But my maps were on big poster board with all my streets named. And this is pretty geeky. I'll just share this with you since we're friends here. I had address ranges in the right margins of my maps. I got the 3500 block there, the 4200 block. What kid cares about address ranges? But there were things that you did and continue to do that maybe nobody else likes to do in your circle of friends or family members. Think about that. We've got a lot in common as the geospatial community. We'll touch on that in the context of education today. But there are unique things that you bring to your organization. I want you to treasure, embrace those, and don't ignore those. Okay, you've got some unique talents and skills that nobody else has. Also, when I was a young person, I got the angle just right in someone's office building. I would knock on the door. Hey, I'm a little kid, but can I take a picture out your window because I know the angle is just going to be just perfect for me. So I was always thinking in those days about infrastructure and about canyons and mountains and so on and so forth. And I've been, as Dr. Rich said, involved with GIS and education for a long time. The first all-web GIS workshop I ever taught was right here at this location. Let's zoom out a little bit so you can see that. It was at the University of Oklahoma. 2010 it was. Gosh, I said to myself, is this going to work? It's all online. It did. It was 3 days long. I was a little nervous about it. But you've got some GIS educational heroes and leaders in your ILGISA community. Dr. Schultz and I have been collaborating for 20 years. You've got people at Harper College, UIUC, DePaul, North Park, and elsewhere that are real champions and people that have great respect even outside of Illinois. As Dr. Schultz mentioned, I do visit a lot of campuses, and I'm going to not mince any words. Some campuses are innovating, some are struggling with how do we teach GIS in the modern era? What do we teach? Where do we teach it? How can we spread it to different disciplines, which is all topics that we're going to unravel today. I loved my time at Eastern Illinois, for example. I have a great heart for many of the smaller campuses. I actually teach right now this semester at a community college in Pennsylvania online, but I have a real heart for not just the big campuses, but the small campuses as well. And I have a great love for your region. Here's me at 40 degrees north, 90 degrees west, standing in a field with my map tie on. As you probably suspect, 40 north, 90 west, cross in Illinois. What's not to love? Anyway, thanks for having me, folks. I really submit to you folks that you are leaders. The ILGISA community has great respect in other states as well. And I have been in many, probably about half of all of the GIS conferences, state GIS conferences. I've been to about half of them. And I can say that there are some real leaders in Illinois. And you all are building this more resilient, sustainable future that we are all seeking, right? When you think about why you got into geotechnologies, maybe you didn't have that higher, more noble goal in mind, but as the years go on, I suspect that many of you are thinking about, it's not just me working on my parcel data or my wastewater or my city plans. I'm actually building the national spatial data infrastructure. Piece by piece, you are building this more resilient, sustainable, equitable world. And so I know this is kind of a deep question for a Wednesday morning, but what do you want to see in society? We all want to see a more, and geospatial technology helps us get there. I'm sharing this in part because of the education theme today, but also you're going to be required, if you haven't already, to articulate the message as to why GIS matters to your boss, your CEOs, your city managers, your county board of superintendents, et cetera. Et cetera. You're going to be asked to articulate that because there's still a bit of a disjoint between, yes, GIS is behind all science, it's all behind all planning, etc., but there's still a little bit of a, hey, I've got Google Maps on my phone. Why do I need a GIS department in my organization, right? So geotechnologies is going to continue as long as we're grappling with the whys of where, which we will in the foreseeable future, unless we suddenly magically get all those problems solved. All those UN SDGs, for example, health, education, clean and safe drinking water, and so on. Sustainable energy, right? Unless we get all those problems solved tomorrow, which we're probably not going to, right, folks? We're going to need geotechnology. So we're going to need you as a vibrant, innovative community. But we do feel a bit challenged, not just with COVID, but with natural hazards and other things that we're grappling with in our communities, in our region, in our states, in our world. We're feeling challenged as well as empowered. So you really have a key role here, folks, and I just wanted to encourage you that you are revolutionary. I actually wrote a whole book about the revolutionary nature of geospatial technologies called Interpreting Our World, 100 Discoveries that Revolutionize Geography, Environmental Science, and Geotechnologies. That might be of interest to some of you. Anyway, changing the way you see the world, changing the way others see the world as an interconnected system of systems, right? That the ecosphere is connected to the biosphere, is connected to the atmosphere, the anthroposphere, right? The human sphere, the 8 billion of us shaping the planet. You're helping people see those interconnections. And if we change this variable in my community or my county or my region or my watershed, it's going to affect this variable. So you're helping people see the big picture and the interconnectedness of our world, which is critically needed in our society. Okay, that all being said, one of our chief challenges in geospatial technology and education in the year 2024 is education that reflects and anticipates workforce demands. Now, how do we do that with, as you folks well know, a rapidly evolving platform? GIS is a platform, right? It's not a niche technology like it was 20 years ago that a couple people over here in your organization did. It's now available and accessible to many people in your organization with huge implications for data quality and other things, and for education as well. And we want to empower students and others, even in our own workplace, to be change agents in society. We need those nudging people. Geospatial technology, in my opinion, folks, just to be totally straightforward with you all, it's a disruptive technology. It sometimes ruffles the status quo in an organization because you're forced to work with different people in different parts of the organization or even outside the organization. And you're also forced, especially with WebGIS, to work with the community, which is a good thing. But it's a disruptive technology. It's meant to be. It's meant to be an innovative, disruptive kind of technology. So what do we want the professional landscape to look like in just 4.5 years from now, 2030? I know it sounds like Star Trek, doesn't it? But 2030 and beyond. And how can you lead the way? So these 5 forces I would submit are something that we can think about that leads us to, okay, that being said, what should we teach? How should we teach it? Where should we teach geospatial technology? First of all, geo-awareness. What I mean by that is that more and more people are aware, at least, of the prominent issues and concerns of our day, not just the UN SDGs, but issues of concern in your own community: public safety, water, transportation, a vibrant economic base, etc. They're aware of that. They don't always connect it to the work that you and I do with geotechnologies, but at least the awareness of geo-related issues is growing. And that's a good thing. How can we capitalize on that? People are also enabled to use tools that are geotechnology based. Package delivery, a fitness app. How many of you have a fitness app, right? Your walks, your runs, your cycle rides, and you've got a map in those things, right? The electricity that's powering your device that enables you to watch this webinar right now in the lower left there. People are enabled to use at least some of these tools to navigate across campus or across your community or to your grandmother's house or to the public library, etc. And lots of other examples we could name. The food you ate yesterday, right? The supply chain that enabled that food to be grown, packaged, delivered. GIS, once again. And the center hexagon, geotechnologies themselves having evolved into this cloud-based platform, is a paradigm shift. Some of you were around in the days before WebGIS, and you know how clunky it was. You know how difficult. And that's why it was such a niche sort of technology, because only a few people had the years necessary to embrace this. So now, with implications to education, now more and more people can have geotechnologies as one of the tools on their tool belt. They don't have to make this decision that many people, I'm going to exaggerate slightly, many people had to make. You're going to be a city planner, or you're going to be a wastewater professional, or you're going to be a GIS person that touches those other areas, but you're going to be fully immersed in GIS because it tended to be all consuming, right, folks? Here's a set of manuals, and spend years learning this. Now, the world is a complex system, and I don't want to imply that GIS is easy nowadays. There's still a lot of complexity in it, in part because the world is, and it's ever changing, right? We've got a dynamic planet here. It's a wonderful planet, but it's dynamic, right? It might be easier if you and I were mapping on Mercury. Every few decades, maybe a meteorite crashes into the surface, and that's just about it. But we've got this wonderfully dynamic, treasured blue ball floating in space, right? That we want to protect, and we want to understand changes and build a better future in. So the geotechnologies adventing into the cloud has enormous implications that we'll unravel and grapple with here in the next short time that we have together. Citizen or community science or crowdsourcing is another major force acting that bring us to this key moment in GIS education and society, where you've got people looking at pine beetle infestation or soil health or water quality or weather, and they're contributing that knowledge, that data, to the cloud, and much of it can be instantly mapped. And finally, storytelling. There are over 4 million story maps, and that's just ArcGIS Esri story maps that you all and others in the communities around the world have said, hey, we want to tell our story. We want to use maps to tell the story and maybe even encourage people to take action. I love the action component of geotechnologies. It's never just about head knowledge, and that has implications for education too. We want to encourage people to take action about the community gardens, the historical homes, the urban greenways, the water quality in our communities, et cetera, right? So story map, this is a story map. Probably many of you, we could do a poll if we had time. Many of you have made a story map or seen a story map.